Cool. Thank you so much, Madhura, for joining us for the Success Story series. So before we get started, if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and what do you do, that will be awesome.
Sure. So thanks so much for having me. Really happy to be here with the Crack Verbal team. I'm a lawyer. I'm a corporate lawyer. I currently work at in a general corporate and investment funds practice area in a firm in Mumbai. I have been working there for the last 3 years. And yeah, so that's just post graduation. I immediately started working with the firm, and now I'm completing close to 3 years with the firm.
Okay. So this was right after graduation. So it's did you do any kind of like a it's like a BA or a what law did you do?
Yeah, so in law now you can traditionally it used to be like you do a BA and then you do law for 3 years post. But now since I think 1990s, they've started a consolidated 5-year BA LLB course, and
Hmm.
that's the one I did from the National Law University in Calcutta.
Awesome.
And so that was 5 years, and immediately after that, it's a combined degree, so you get a BA and an LLB all together.
Right. Right. Wow. So that is one of the best schools in India, I guess, for law. The NLU in Calcutta, right? So
Yeah, it's one of the good ones. Yeah.
So why did this thought of doing an MBA come to your mind? Because law, I guess, is a completely different direction, trajectory, and why? And right after 3 years, right, working in corporate law, why did that
Right.
come?
So I'll be honest with you. I actually don't think law is that devoid of what an MBA constitutes and what roles post MBA constitute. Because especially in corporate law, like I mean, law, there's lots of ways that you can perform as a lawyer, right? I happen to be a corporate lawyer, so we do work on a lot of acquisitions, transactions, various kinds of corporates, and we also do fund formations. So it wasn't that this is something completely out of the blue. These are basically the clients I deal with on a day-to-day basis as well. So it was always something that I was exposed to right from the beginning. And my team also gave me that kind of exposure where I really got to learn a lot about what the commercials of each transaction were, really understand in detail why certain acquisitions were being made, and really looking at it not just from a legal perspective, but also from a commercial perspective. And because I got that unique exposure right from the beginning, that part of my brain also really started working, and I realized that those are part of the transactions that I truly enjoy doing. Like I love to know how those businesses work, and from a lawyer's perspective, we saw the legalese of it, right? Like we saw it from a limited diligence aspect. But when you look at really how big transactions are structured and how each aspect, there is so much of thought process and so much of structuring that happens, those were the bits that I really got excited about, which is why this idea somewhere started forming that, if I want to expand my horizons, or in the long term, if I need to find something that truly interests me, maybe an MBA is the way to go.
Right, right. Awesome. So how did you go about with the research? So now that you decided that, okay, MBA is something you want to do, how did you go about it? And walk us through your GMAT journey predominantly.
So I was I knew initially when I started doing research about what will be required for an MBA, every single place the first step is GMAT. So I started taking a look at what the format was like, what were the subjects that were involved in the GMAT, because obviously I haven't, I'm not from the area, so I had no idea what the exam would constitute. And then we started taking a look at what is the kind of built-in knowledge that I will need to be able to do this exam. So thankfully I had done math till the 12th grade. So when I saw that there's not like, they're not expecting some really like extra level of math knowledge, that was something I took a little bit of comfort in, maybe incorrectly in the beginning. And then I started looking at how could I like, I don't have too much time on my hands, right? We have, like, I'm a working professional, so I wanted to be most productive with my time, which is why I started looking for, institutions like Crack Verbal, where they were really experts and they would be able to save a lot of my time of me doing my own research and making the mistakes, because they've already done that and you guys already have a formula and you know how this works from before. So I started talking to a couple of people and I saw a couple of the YouTube videos from Crack Verbal as well. And which is why then I got in touch with the team and started understanding from them that, what were these services available and how someone like me could benefit from them.
Right. Right. So what were your major, so you said math, though you had done math till 12th standard, that was
Yeah.
still your area of concern. And how
Right.
being a lawyer, how was verbal? Because critical reasoning, and I mean, that is more like an assumption, right? Critical reasoning should come naturally to you. You read so much of content every day. RC should be, something that you should be good at. Are these assumptions true, or how does it work how did it work in your case?
So, yeah, I get other people having those assumptions about us, but when you're a lawyer yourself, you also take everything with a bit of pinch of salt, right? Because, yeah, I mean, I would say that, so if I split it up, right? Verbal, if I had to say what came very naturally to us, at least to me, was critical reasoning and reading comprehension. Because you're right, we do read passages, like these passages are quite small to what we have to read every day. So that's fine. And even critical reasoning to that extent was a little easier. But like I said, actual real life skills and testing format skills are two very different things. You still need to mold and understand what that particular question requires and how you can do that in that 2 minute period that you have. Sentence correction, on the other hand, in verbal, made me question if I had done grammar in school, because in the beginning I was very lost. I would say that I have decent English, but the way, the granularity to which they want you to look at stuff, right? That's not something we're used to. Even as a lawyer, when I write every day, I don't look at it to that granular extent, because you do speak colloquially. There is a difference between what the GMAT wants and what verbal wants. So that was someplace that I really had to train myself against my own instincts. But if I took the other side, which is quant, yeah, I had done quant till the 12th grade. So thankfully, I didn't have to learn too many of the basics. But I haven't done math since since I passed out of school, which was 8 years ago. And I do believe that the GMAT requires you to be very comfortable with your quant skills. It's not just where you know formulas and you know everything. You need to know how to apply it, and you need to really understand what that formula is intended to do. And that was really a steep learning curve for me, because I was very out of touch with all of those kind of things. So that was kind of where I was at a starting point.
Right. You mentioned about sentence correction, right? Tell me, what was your initial thing, and how did you actually progress in that area?
So my confidence was kind of shattered because of sentence correction. But I actually started when I started with Crack Verbal. I remembered I used to attend the classes which used to happen on the weekends, and sentence correction was the classes that I really paid attention to, because like I said, most of us have great English when we're speaking, but it's those concepts that really need to get drilled down in your head so that you're able to apply them when the question comes up. So it really came down to practice for me for sentence correction, that I just, even before my GMAT, every day I had a schedule that in the evening, 15 questions of sentence correction and just understanding the mistakes and working on them the next day. That was basically it. I don't think I had to spend too much time on the concepts, but just practice was very necessary for me for verbal and for sentence correction.
Right. So, apart from, along with work and preparing for GMAT, how did you manage the whole thing? And if you have to guide someone today and ask you that, how did you manage a 760, more in terms of managing your time, what would you tell them?
Yeah, I mean, I think I can attest to that. I think Arun sir, who took my personal tutoring, also can very much attest to the fact that me juggling my work and my studies became an issue at times, because you have responsibilities on both sides, right? It does become a priority issue. What I would say, what really worked for me in the end was the fact that I had a very rigorous schedule. I set a schedule and I very disciplinedly follow it. Thankfully, I did get a few weeks off in the end as well, thanks to my team. So I really got to amp up my prep right before my test. But before that as well, I'd become very disciplined with my prep, and I had a schedule set and I would follow that schedule to the T. And what made the most amount of difference, and this is something I picked up from the sessions I was having, was that every single thing I did, I made sure it was timed, so that I did not waste time on solutions and on building my own mentality for solving problems in a way that would not be permitted on the GMAT. I can't take 4 minutes for a basic question on the GMAT. So every single day I had a schedule where, come what may, I would do a time test. I had made an Excel sheet with the quant review and the OG where I had split up questions, 31 questions of quant. And come what may, I would do a time test, look at the mistakes, do the mistakes again, and repeat. And that somehow, I think that conditioning really helped me, because even then, even if I had work, I was you can remove 1 hour from the day and do a time test. Like that much time, I think everyone can kind of figure out from the lives. So it kind of came down to that. I would say that, if someone doesn't, like, I work a lot, like our law firm life is a little different. So it's quite rigorous. So for you to really cull out time every day becomes difficult. But if you have some semblance of, like some fixed amount of hours, then it just requires discipline. Like, you just need to force yourself to take that time out and do it on a consistent basis. It'll take a little more time, but it's definitely not impossible.
Right. So from the first time you took the test to, your second time, there's a big
Yeah.
jump on your quant scores, especially.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
changed, and I know you worked very closely with Arvind on that. So
Yeah.
what changed in terms of your approach, from the first to the second?
Right. So, like I said, like I told Arvind sir as well, right after my test, the only thing that changed, honestly, through last time and this time was my strategy and approach. Because I think knowledge wise, he clarified a lot of the concepts for me, because I had taught myself almost the last time around. But those strategies he told me to solve questions across the board, that's really what made a lot of difference to me. So, if I had to really cull out, like, three things that made a huge difference, thing one would obviously be my personal tutoring. I needed it. It saved me. Second thing would be the fact that I learned how to solve questions in a more efficient manner. Every single question was looked at not just from whether I got it right, but whether I've gotten it in the most efficient amount of time. Really important quant. Verbal, I was anyway very comfortable with, so it didn't make that much of a difference. But quant, that made a lot of difference. And lastly, what I learned really well is that all of us come from this approach from school that, if there are 10 questions, 9 on 10, 10 on 10, you have to get correct. That's like great. But in the GMAT, you need to be a lot smarter than that. I had made my peace that, okay, there are certain topics. If I see this question, I'm not going to get it right. I also know that in 2 minutes, this is not going to happen. So I would spend 30 seconds on it. If not, no problem. Leave it, give it the most close, estimate of an answer you can, leave it and move on. And that made a huge amount of difference in my prep, because it then gave me the chance to actually, like, I would save up on at least good 4 minutes in the hard level questions, where if I got an arithmetic question I knew I was good at, I had the time to solve it. Like, I could give it 2.5, 3 minutes, because I would have done that calculation. And then I would again, I had enough of hard level questions. Even when I was giving the test, that was very good, because the minute I knew ki, okay, this is not going to get solved, I was like, okay, this is a risk I can take. And that worked out for me right in the end. So you kind of need to find what works for you. And maybe this approach doesn't work for everyone. Maybe you can get 100% of the questions right. But you need to find a rhythm and the way what works for you from before. And that's really what I found in the last 6 months.
Right. In terms of taking tests, right? So before you actually took the real GMAT, how many tests did you take, and did you start seeing the score? You got to finally, or how was it for you?
Yeah. So I had some of the official tests left from my last time around. So I think I had around maybe five official tests remaining, like one try each. That's all I had. And I had the crack verbal, section tests, which I had remaining. And I had these quant review book, for which I had made my own time test. So I had like 10 tests I had made out of that for myself. So initially, when I started off my prep, I didn't start with the official GMAT tests, because I didn't have too many of them. So I started with the quant review, and every day I could see that there was a difference. And maybe that's just for me, but I really think that would make a difference for anyone. Like, the first day I made like 6 mistakes, and then I did those mistakes again. I repeated, I checked what went wrong. The next day I did 4 mistakes, and then midway I had, like, there were tests that I did no mistakes, which was quite surprising for me. Like, it was not normal. And by the time I started doing my official tests, I was hitting a 770. Like, across the board, it was a 750, 760, and last 2 tests were 770. Now, I was pessimistic enough not to take that seriously, which I would tell everyone to still do. Like, on the test day, being under those nerves is a very different ballgame. So I was like not expecting a 760 out of it, but I was comfortable that I will do better than my last time around. Like, I could see that difference in my practice tests already.
Right. So from start to finish, if you're looking at consistent, solid preparation, how long was your preparation time?
I don't even know. I think the first time around, again, I got a few weeks off before the test, so I was able to prep then. But I believe the last 6 months, I used to do one class a week. Some weeks I wasn't even able to do that because of work. And I would prep during the week for that class. So I had that consistency that every week I would do that. But I really believe that the last 4 weeks I got before my GMAT, that's when I had come to the comfort level with the portions being completed, that I was like, now it's just prep time. And during that time, the rigorous prep that I did, where every day a time test, every day verbal, and really understanding what my mistakes are and working on those topics in the morning, that I think made a whole world of a difference to me. Like if I had not done that, I do not think I would have done this well. It's because I got that disciplined, rigorous time that I was able to really work on the groundwork that already Arvind sir had already done through the months.
Right, right. So were you like a morning person or an evening person? Like, when did you actually spend most of your time preparing?
I honestly, I'm actually a morning person. I always woken up really early, but because of my work now, I can work any time of the day. It does not matter to me. So I used to wake up early and I used to work through that, and preferably not work like at really late at night. But I really was very tough with myself. That I was like, if I've not finished my work, then I will still till 12 also, but I have to finish that work. So I would try not to do it, but usually I'd start in the morning and by evening I'd be done.
Right. Right. So, was this, I am assuming you took the online version of the GMAT, right?
No, I didn't. I actually went to the center. Luckily enough, the center near my house opened up. So I got to go there.
Okay. In Pune, it was open near
Yeah.
you. Oh, okay. That's lucky. Okay.
I checked. Yeah. I don't know how, but they were open. Yeah.
Right. So is there like a process you followed that, this is what I'll do in the break time, and also while you were taking the test, did you also plan it that this is the time I will take? Because people have those things, right? They always take their mocks in a certain time and make sure that they take the GMAT also on the same time. Did you also follow something like that?
Yeah, I mean, it's not like I didn't follow that completely. Last time I took a test, which was I think at 9:45 in the morning, and that just became a little too hectic for everyone. You try to reach early and then you really don't put yourself in that mindset. So I had picked like a 12 o'clock time where I thought that was sufficient and everyone could be comfortable. And I did make it a point to do my mock tests at that period. Because it's just a human tendency that it's lunchtime. So your concentration is going to waver. So I was just trying to train myself, I think, for the mistake I'd already made by doing that. And even that's why during the exam also, my concern was just that I was thirsty and hungry. So I went outside, drank water, and that was about it. But because I had done those time tests at that time, I think I was very comfortable with that time to slot to do the entire test. Like I had prepared myself for it accordingly.
And did you also practice wearing masks while you were taking your mock tests?
No, I did not. I had enough things to worry about when I was doing the test at home that a mask did not occur to me. And I think my center especially was very well managed. They were very spaced out. So I didn't need to double mask. I was wearing a normal mask and I continued with that. And I think most centers that way are very well managed to ensure that no one's sitting right beside you. Like they are quite spaced out. So I know, but that didn't occur to me to do a masked mock test.
Right.
Yeah.
So what was your, so that means you would have immediately got your score, right? As soon as you click submit.
Yeah. I immediately got my.
So what was your feeling, and what was the first thing you thought of?
Like I said, I'm quite pessimistic. So when I did my quant first, thankfully I did my quant the first this time around, and then I did verbal. And when I did my quant, my feeling was that usually the practice test I was doing, if on a scale of 10, if those were a 10, this was maybe like an 8.5, because I knew I had skipped some questions and I knew that I wasn't midway of my exam. I wasn't very sure. And similarly for verbal also, usually verbal, I used to finish like 20 minutes, 25 minutes in advance. This time I took I had only 10 minutes remaining. So I was a little, okay, let's see. So in my mind, I thought I'll get a 720, 730, because anyway, I had discounted my official scores also by a 40-mark margin. So when I actually saw the score, I was a little shocked. I checked, am I reading this correctly? And I wrote down also just to ensure that I can check the math later on. But yeah, I was obviously very, very happy. And I didn't expect it. I was expecting a 740. But I think that just goes to show that the official tests, which GMAT does provide, are pretty accurate. Because those were the scores I was getting on those as well.
Right.
So
Awesome,
Yeah.
awesome. So congratulations on that. I think this is a very big task done or hurdle overcome. I think now it puts you in a position where you can actually confidently apply to the schools of your choice,
Yeah.
and plan that really well. So that's awesome. So top three things, if you have to tell people who are preparing right now, what would be your advice to them?
Um, I would say, like I said, be consistent with your preparation. However, how much ever possible, try to be consistent because a gap will affect you adversely.
Mhm.
Um, do everything on a timed perspective. There is no question that should not be timed unless you're doing it for the first time for practice. Time everything because that additional pressure really stimulates what the real GMAT feels like. And lastly, I would say that work smartly when it comes to questions you are targeting. Target,
Mhm.
you should ensure that you learn everything. Don't skip a portion, of course. But when you are looking at a 30, like GMAT does not mark you like saying 31 on 31 does not equal an 800, right? It is moderated. There is a logic to it. Really try to understand what that logic is and see what works best for you. Try to figure out a strategy that works best for you because oftentimes that's what pays off. They're not expecting you to get 100 or 100. So yeah.
Right. Awesome. Thank you so much, Madhura. I think
Thank you.
that was motivating as well as inspirational, because I think a lot of people, feel that it is tough, it takes a longer time. And but I think it's all about, like you said, being consistent,
Yeah.
pursuing, putting all your hard work and effort around it. And I think more from, understanding the test very well. It might
Yeah.
not be like any other test that we have taken. It requires a lot of logic, and it
Yeah.
requires a lot of, I would say it is definitely a test of intelligence in some way.
Yeah, which is a good thing. It's not expecting you to really by heart formulas and stuff. It's just expecting you to do it intelligently. And I think that's quite interesting. It makes it fun as well. So
Right,
yeah.
right. Cool. Thank you so much, Madhura. I think this was awesome.